To paraphrase Hunter S. Thompson, when you get locked into a serious beer collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can.
Cheers. Son of a bitch! Give me a drink. One more night. On this camping thing. Son of a bitch! If I drink it clean, I'm gonna drink my life away.
Welcome back to the Tap Takeover Podcast. We've got a very special treat for our listeners today, a brand new brewery. On tap today, we've got a live tasting, brewery news, and conversations about beer and the challenges of brewing in a crowded market space. Today, we're sitting down with the owners of Park Brewing. They opened their doors on January 28th, so we're talking brand new, folks. We've got Jake Schinker, creative director, and Jackson Borgart, head brewer. Say hello, guys.
How's it going?
What's up?
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. This is a real treat. We've been dealing with a lot of really established breweries who've been doing it for years, and they're set in their ways. So we're really excited to talk to you guys and see what the edge of the industry is like.
Yes, we're definitely fresh. That's for sure.
You're a real upstart, and you're definitely on the smaller side. So you've got a lot more challenges than some of these larger breweries. So we're really interested in hearing how you've overcome them.
Well, I mean, I think just as many challenges, there's actually a lot of benefits too. Challenges, obviously not getting enough beer out to as fast as you want to. That's definitely a big concern of ours is, we have all these people calling us asking for beer, and we just have to look at them and say, one day, like maybe soon. Definitely a time constraint too. Brewing 4 or 5 days a week, 12 hours a day is definitely takes time away from doing all the other things that go along with brewing and running a brewery. And I think even being as small as we are, even my brother Max not being 100% full-time yet, so he still has another job. So it's basically me day to day for the most part, and then Jake and Max both, when they aren't working, are here. So it's definitely, those are the main challenges of Eagle Park for sure. I think the benefits for sure is the ability to experiment. Because we're a smaller brewery, I can really go to town on new things and really trying and not having to worry about, oh God, this 30 barrel batch, what happens if this goes bad, or I don't like this, I'm not just going to dump it in the drain. It's way different working with 1 barrel batches. So it definitely gives me the freedom to try new things.
So let's talk about your introduction to craft brewing. Was there a beer that you tried once upon a time that really turned your head? And what brought you into brewing on your own?
My first experience with craft beer, I went to college down in Louisiana to LSU. So the big brewery down there is Abita, and they're like the only ones who distribute bomber bottles anywhere, and they're at gas stations. There's that much of them out there. And craft beer, when I was down there, wasn't that big yet. So I was definitely one of the more adventurous beer drinkers out of my friend group and started buying these bomber bottles, and it was just truly interesting beer. And for a college kid, sure, it was a little expensive, but definitely worth the flavor that I was getting, and that just sparked my interest right away. Started kind of researching home brewing when I was still in school, but didn't really get into it until I got back to Wisconsin, and shortly after I met up with these guys. And we got a lot better at home brewing.
Yeah, for me, Max and I, our other partner, my brother, kind of discovered craft beer together. I would have to say the first beers that we drank together were probably Lakefront IPA, I would say. That was probably the first beer. And I remember me and him, he was, I was mildly not legal at the time, but Max would buy it, and we'd be sitting there, and I remember cracking it open and drinking this and being like, what is this delicious nectar? And I think from then on, we both just kept experiencing brand new beers, and definitely always leaned on the hoppier side for sure, but not straying away from, trying any style. But I think it was like 4 years ago, Max and I have been talking for quite a few months about, home brewing and wanting to start up. And I finally sacked up and spent the money on the equipment. I mean, if you know Max and I, we definitely go everything all out. We went all grain right away. Didn't brew a single extract batch. I guess we just got hooked from day one. First batch I brewed a hoppy brown ale, and it turned out great. I think from then on out I was brewing at least 2 or 3 times, if not more, a month. So and then it only increased as time went. So yeah,
you guys didn't even do out of the box recipes to begin with.
No, they were
all
our recipes
all off the cuff.
from day one. I couldn't get enough studying and reading. Anything I could absorb, I would.
So was there any one batch that you guys brewed where you guys were like, now is the time, this is the thing that we need to get out there? Or was it just the process that you loved, just coming up with the new recipes?
I think early on there wasn't really, what I was most proud of is we never lost a batch. All the beers were solid. We were really happy with them. But there wasn't really one beer that I was like, all right, this beer is going to be here in our future brewery. Like, it wasn't until we decided, okay, this is what we're going to do, we're going to start a brewery, that I really kind of focused on creating some of these beers that I have on now.
So how did you transition from brewing in your garage to actually creating a brewery and opening up?
Oddly enough, I mean, from a brewing standpoint, our process, the actual brewing process is changed a little, but I think it's mainly for us the change of like all the record keeping and aging process, working with a bright tank and a carb, like so some of those little things that a home brewer doesn't do. I think that was the hardest thing for sure to kind of, now it's real. It's like we have to do this. But I mean, the brewing system that we have right now is actually the system that I honed all these recipes in on. So I use a Sabco Brew Magic, and I'm brewing the same 12-gallon batches every run that I was, 2 years ago. So I think for us that was a really big deal because it kind of eased the transition into professional brewing. Whereas if I would have started with a 7-barrel or a 10-barrel, which is at one point I think what we were talking about doing, I don't think it would have been as easy of a transition. I mean, definitely we could have done it, but it definitely wouldn't have been, all right, let's brew these batches and open up. It would have been, let's brew these batches a couple times, see where things are, and then once we get it down, all right, now we're going to start to open up.
Cool. It kind of lets you hit the ground running a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So you're the only one that works the brewery full time. How do you guys handle still having a day job, or the other two?
I tend to double dip a lot, and, especially with kind of my job description is doing a lot of our social media and all of our graphic design work. So graphic design is my day job, so I'm able to whip up a quick document if we need it, or mess around with a logo if an event needs it. So for me, it's not too bad. I work for my family's company, so they're pretty cool about supporting me.
Cool.
But yeah, it's gradually here. It's definitely more hours getting spent here. It's slowly chipping away at my day job. So hopefully in the near future here, all three of us will be on full time, because it's definitely getting to the point where it can support us. So that's cool.
And Max is a bar manager at Maddie's out in New Berlin, and he works 50, 60 hours there full time. So he'll be here from like 10 to 4, and then go work from 5 to 3 every night. So he definitely has the biggest load to bear as far as that goes. I mean, he's got a wife and 2 small children too. So I think that's definitely frustrating for him, and now we're able to slowly, like Jake said, chip away at his workload over there. So now starting next week, he'll be here mostly full time now. So it's going to be really great to have him around, and Jake as well, obviously. And
Jake, as a creative director, I wanted to talk to you about the emblem, the eagle. What kind of thought and process went into the brand?
So our brand being rock music and craft beer, we kind of wanted a logo that kind of bridged both those, that it'd be equally as home on the front of a bass drum as it would on a bottle. So the design process from working with an eagle is more difficult than we expected, because every culture has used it for thousands of years, and it's going to look like one thing or another, and was trying to not look like too much of any of them. Worked with a great branding company. I can't take the credit for doing our whole brand, but because that was something I had never done before, and making a brand cohesive across everything is really an art form. But now that we kind of have our base down, I'm able to take our attributes and work them into new stuff. We definitely built it to be flexible and really brand forward and recognizable on the shelf. So.
And it like a big thing was we wanted it to look like Jake said, like it looked like it would belong on a bass drum head or a patch, on a jacket, or a sticker on a guitar case. Like, we want it to have that rock and roll vibe to it, and I think we captured it. Oddly enough, the original name of our brewery was actually Eagle Trace Brewing Company. which is our band name. And if I don't know, obviously the listeners can't, but you can see our logo.
We're gonna get pictures, so our,
Yeah.
our listeners will see everything in here too.
And it's a little bit more of a sharper, cleaner cut eagle for that, and we wanted to update it and make it a little unique to us or for the brewery. And yeah, Eagle Trace Brewing Company. So it was E-T and the arms or the wings or whatever, and then that was a B for Eagle Trace Brewing Company. And we actually had a cease and desist after we put in our trademark for Eagle Trace from Buffalo Trace.
It was Sazerac who owns
Sazerac brands, and we got one from Eagles Trace Winery out in Napa or Sonoma, one of them. I remember getting that phone call. We had already done all of our branding, was almost all the way done. Everything was like ready to go. We're like super excited to be like, all right, we're moving in a month to the brewery. Like this is all going smooth as can be. It was Sarah, my fiance's birthday, so we took the day off, and I was just drinking all day. And I think I was at lunch, and Max called me, and I could tell he was like really pissed, and which isn't uncommon for Max, but he. He's gonna kill me for saying that. He's gonna kill me. Anyway,
It's on the record, dude.
Make sure we lead into the episode with it.
yeah. He's gonna come through there with a bat tomorrow. And he was like, I just got off of the trademark office. And I was like, oh, so we got our trademark and everything? He's like, no, we didn't. We can't. And I was like, can't? Like, and he's like, yeah, no, we can't. Eagles Trace Winery is too close in name. And now the laws have, because of all these trademark, fighting between all the breweries and distilleries and wineries, they're all fighting each other. They're like making it way more cut and dry. So if you own a trademark in wine, it's for everything. And our lawyer told us that wasn't the case. It said, under their trademark, liquor except beer. So we were like, oh, we're good. We're good to go. No big deal at all. And we're like, all right, well, let's appeal it. And we called the trademark lawyer, and he's like, no, I don't think I'll ever approve this. Like, you could definitely fight it for sure, but you're probably just going to spend money and lose. Yeah. And he's like, well, you could ask permission. And I was like, yeah. And
doesn't
we looked
benefit
up,
them at all to
no,
say yes.
So they had one of the best law firms in San Francisco, and no good lawyer is going to ever say yes. Let's be nice, And then a week later is when we got the cease and desist from Sazerac Brands, and so we were just like, all right, I guess it's officially dead. And we were originally like, all right, I guess we have to change the whole name. And for like 2 or 3 weeks, we were just freaking out, like, what the hell are we going to call this brewery that we were moving in a month?
We had submitted paperwork and everything.
Yeah, our
LLC.
Our TTP paperwork was already sent in. Everything was done, and so we were like so furious and upset, and finally, I don't know who said it. It might have been my dad.
Give him credit. Why not?
It might have been my dad. And he said, well, how about you call it Eagle Park? And I was like, because basically the Eagle Trace came from the street that we grew up on in New Berlin. That's the name of the band. It's where our band was formed. It's where I started home brewing. And so that was why I was Eagle Trace. And so the name now is Eagle Trace and Deer Park Drive. It's the corner that we lived on. So we just kind of fused them together, and we were like, all right, this works. And basically we took the B in the logo and turned it to a P, and we didn't have to change too much. And it worked out fine, and the logo still looks cool. I mean, yeah,
It was a lot cooler, the meaning, but
it was a lot cooler. And it's definitely hard when someone says, hey, what does Eagle Park come from? Oh, well, we had a trademarking issue
it's
with
a
Eagle
long story
Trace.
to tell the bar.
Yeah, and we got a cease and desist from Sazerac Brands, so now, Eagle Park, Deer Park Drive, and everyone just goes, oh, okay, rather than just saying, hey, it's Eagle Trace, it's the street we grew up on, So it's definitely a little bit more annoying, but it's a story. I think we're going to frame that cease and desist from Sazerac Brands.
We made it.
It does make for a great
The old
story.
face, right?
So, yeah, it was a very interesting time, for sure, last summer.
And so how did you kind of cobble together the initial funds to get this started and make that big plunge? It's got to be pretty scary, right? Having, you're going to be brewing a little bit on the smaller side.
Definitely. We were pretty lucky being in the bar business. Max and I had both been working in restaurants since we were like 16. Between the two of us, probably like 12, 14 years of working in restaurants. So when you're in a bar, you meet a lot of people, and a lot of people come in and they're always talking to you, and you share especially with your regulars. And Max had been saying for a while, oh yeah, my brother brother, Jake and I are thinking about starting a brewery. And it just so happened that one of his regulars also happens to be a very, what's the best word to say it?
Successful man.
Successful
Well-heeled,
anesthesiologist.
Yes.
Well-to-do.
Yes, and he was looking to invest in something, and he's a big craft beer fan, and it worked from day one. And I think we were pretty lucky. We didn't have to knock on too many doors. We didn't have to drum up too much sales as far as that goes.
I think we were also fortunate too that with our business model of how small we are, it was a lot more flexible. We weren't looking for as much money as, say, we were going with a 30-barrel system.
Sure. Yeah.
It gets up to crazy numbers when you're starting out a small or thinking about a small business.
We didn't have a $1.5 million price tag.
Yeah.
Ours was a fraction of that, and I think that also, like Jake said, really helped.
So two things that we're big on at the Tap Takeover Podcast is telling beer stories and taking over taps. We always like to encourage our brewers to tell their brewery story through their beers. If Eagle Park were to take over the taps at the Tap Takeover Podcast, which of your many beers would you choose to tell that story?
I would say for sure Loop Station. Loop Station I actually developed about a year ago. Right about that time is when we were looking at our lineup and kind of what we want, and we noticed that there was kind of a lacking in the lighter, more sessionable, everybody can drink category. Talked about doing a Pilsner, we talked about doing a Kolsch. I was kind of toying around with the idea of doing something with like a Mexican lager type concept, and I did a little research into it, and I learned that a lot of the original Mexican lagers were done by Austrian and German brewers, and then I was like, okay, well, how about we do kind of like a Kolsch and then give it that Latin twist, and probably really odd thinking and how I came to that, but yeah, it's a German malt bill, Vienna malts, and I use a Kolsch E strain, and then I give it that little agave nectar, lime peel, and sea salt just to make it a really bright, refreshing beer that I think is very unique to us and who we are. I mean, a big part of what we try to do is create flavorful, more sessionable beers, and I think that beer really showcases that craft beer can have flavor in a more sessionable, drinkable package.
Hence the name Loop Station.
Loop Station.
A beer you can put on repeat.
Yes.
So.
And if I recall, these two, Max and Jake, did not like the idea at all. And they said, oh, that'll never work. And I was like, it's going to work. And I remember pulling it out of the keg and giving them a glass and then going, screw you, Jack.
And now it's our number one selling beer.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you guys call it a golden ale, but it really kind of does defy description. It's a little bit of a bunch of different stuff.
And it's hard, and that's why it's really hard to give it a style. And I don't want to call it a Kolsch because it's not a true Kolsch, and I don't want to call it blonde. So we just kind of came with, well, why don't we just call it a golden ale? I don't know. It's hard to describe, like you said, and so that's why we set on that.
Oh, so how about some others? What other beers would you use to tell that story?
I would say Set List probably is another good one. Our sessionable IPA. The story behind the name is we just wanted a good IPA that you could drink through playing a whole set as a band. So as far as grain and malt.
We're musicians. We're in a band called Eagle Chase, and we've been playing for 6 years as a band. It's actually me and all my brothers and another friend of ours, and we've made the mistake way too many shows of having too many high-octane beers and then stepping up on stage and making a fool of ourselves. I remember a specific time of playing in Madison, and they had Dogfish 120 on. And me having 3 of them before I went on stage, thinking, all right, if I drink 3 of them now, it's going to take about, I'm playing for a half hour. It's going to take maybe 45 minutes for this beer to really kick in. So after the show, I'm going to be good to go. Didn't work. I got on stage. I got like half a song in, and I could feel my pupils like dilate just right on stage. And I think that whole show, if you saw me, I was just playing, like just looking at my hands like, all right, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. So yeah, that was kind of the inspiration of that beer. Again, a very flavorful beer in a more sessionable package. It's a 5-hop blend. Our earlier versions of Setlist was only 1 or 2 hops, and they were typically very expensive. Like most home brewers, obviously you want to have awesome hops, and you really care about paying $3 for an ounce for a Galaxy, because it's like, I'm doing it for fun, I might as well make something really awesome. Well, on the other hand of that, when you're opening a brewery, it tends to change your thinking a little bit. Oh, that's going to cost that? All right, well, all right, so we're going to twist it up, and that's why I figured by switching to a 5-hop blend, they're all very commercially readily available too. I mean, one of the earlier versions had, I believe, Nelson Sauvin in it, which was a pipe dream at best. And so it's a Simcoe forward IPA, and again, it really lets the hops really shine through to make a really bright citrusy IPA that you can drink beer after beer and not fall down halfway through the set.
Very good. What are the other hops in there?
Cascade, Centennial, Nugget, and Columbus.
Oh, all right, some almost CTZ, but not
yes.
So
Exactly.
what about some of your bigger beers? What would you tell your story with for the big boys here?
Immortal Soul, for sure. We came up with that concept while brewing in my parents' garage. We were like looking around, trying to come up with like our awesome IPA that people are going to be like, all right, this is the IPA that they should be known for. Like craft beer people will go, all right, we love this. And
I did when I first tried it.
And Max was like, well, what if we could do a beer that's year-round, but it's the hop is rotating? And I was like, oh, it's a really cool idea, but like, will that work? And he's like, well, what if we keep everything the exact same, but change the hop that you use? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, that sounds awesome. What would you call it? And he's like, never happens with a name. How about Immortal Soul? And I was like, all right, Immortal Soul it is. I mean, names are tough, but it really works. So it's like the same soul, different personality. That's the concept for the beer. Same bitterness, same IBU. Oh, that's the same thing. Same color, alcohol percentage, but it really lets you, taste what that hop really, really is like. I mean, we have done blends, but right now the Immortal Soul is a Zaka, so you get that really nice, tropical fruit, mango, papaya. Even I get pineapple in there with that touch of pine. So when someone comes in here and says, "Oh wow, this is," they're describing it, it's like, yeah, that's just a Zaka. It's not a blend. It's not, and they're like, oh, and it kind of educates people, in what hops taste like. We really enjoy that.
And to round it out, if you're doing a tap takeover, you got to have a big dark beer too. So which one would you choose for that?
I would say if we had to pick one that we brew, would be Imperial Line Check. It's not something that we do all year round. It's just a limited release, but it's basically our porter, an Imperial version of our porter, and it's a 10.2% big-bodied beer that I age with cacao nibs and vanilla beans. And I actually use vanilla beans in the mash too, to really try to seal in those flavors. And they're Madagascar bourbon vanilla beans. And it's the first time I ever brewed it, and it just turned out so nice. Oddly enough, like a month in, I tasted it out of the fermenter, and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like it wasn't really coming together, and right at about the 2-month mark, I tasted it and I was like, oh, okay, all right, here we go. Like now it's ready. The flavors really kind of melded together, and it created a smoother profile, and it turned out really nice. And I think, yeah, if I had to pick one, that would be it.
So it definitely doesn't drink like a 10.2.
No.
Which is dangerous.
No, actually, Jesus couldn't be with us today. We've got Jim and we've got Andy and myself, Alex. But Jesus couldn't be here today, but he wanted to specifically ask about that because we did an interview with Raised Grain. They're the only folks that we know of who are doing the bourbon barrel-aged coffee beans in their beer. And talk to us about how that kind of mimics the flavor of aging the beer in a bourbon barrel, but you're just aging the coffee beans.
Yeah, we heard about Max is a big coffee drinker. Jake, I'm sure you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not. I love coffee. I can't really have the caffeine. I had a little issue when I was a child with caffeine overdose, so I can't really do a lot of caffeine. He had this stuff at Hawthorne, and he was like, dude, like, we got to brew a beer with this. And our oatmeal brown ale, the original version as a home brewer was a coffee oatmeal brown ale. So I was like, all right, well, that's perfect. Let's do a coffee oatmeal brown ale with these bourbon barrel aged coffee beans. And what they basically do is Hawthorne takes bourbon barrels and they take green unroasted coffee and they age it for I believe it was like 2 months.
I'm not sure.
It's 2 or 3 months, and every day they roll it across their floor so the beans get contact with the barrel, and then after that time they roast it, and it really takes on a completely different flavor profile in the coffee. You get the vanilla, you get the oak. It's the caramel notes to it too, and it really just until you try it, like it's a very unique coffee beer, just purely from the beans. I would bet that you're going to start seeing a lot more from the area for sure with that.
Yeah, Hawthorne Coffee is knocking that stuff out of the park.
Yeah, it's really, and it's not a, it's a Colombian roast, so it's not overly, it's not a really dark roast, so it really, lets the barrel come through. And I think if you did roast it longer, you'd lose a lot of those really subtle, soft, delicate notes from the barrel.
So let's go back to that Immortal Soul. What sort of plans do you have on the hop variations that you're working with on that one?
I just did a blend last week. I actually used Azaka, and I used El Dorado hop hash, which is first time using it. Basically, from the pelletizing process, there's leftover residue on the pelletizer, and they basically scrape it off and package it, and it's basically like concentrated, lupulin gland. So it's got all the really sticky, awesome flavors from the hops, just extremely concentrated. So I did a variant on that. That'll be coming out in the next week. Just tasted it out of the fermenter, and it turned out really good. I'm double dry hopping it, so I got another addition yet. I have a version I did with all experimental South African hops, and I probably will never get it again, but I saw one of the descriptors on one of them, it described it as Kool-Aid. I saw Kool-Aid and I was like, sold, done. I'm brewing it. So that's in plans. I do have Galaxy, so I'll be doing a Galaxy Immortal Soul, which I'm really excited about. That'll probably be coming out in August or September, and I think we're going to be brewing a 50-barrel batch of that. So it should be in stores. We'll probably bomber it probably in September, I'm thinking. If our plans go.
So with the hop hash, you really don't know what the alpha acid level is. How do you, from a technical perspective, kind of deal with that?
Maybe on a bigger scale, with like the bigger breweries, they're a lot nicer and will give the exact. But on when I got it, it said like 12 to 18 or 12 to 19% alpha acid. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we're just gonna have to.
That's a pretty big range.
Yeah,
big range. Yeah.
See how this turns out. And it was all late, really, really late kettle Whirlpool editions for the hop hash, so it didn't go too extreme with it, but it definitely made it a touch more bitter than we were thinking. But yeah, it's crazy stuff if you look at it. I mean, it looks like weed. I mean, it's like really sticky, and it's really like, it looks like a green sticky rock, and it's crazy, and the aromatics are just crazy.
So do you get a big ball that you just toss into your boil kettle, or do you break it up? Or
I broke it up a little bit, so it wasn't like sticking together, and I'd be I drain off and I just find the product sitting at the bottom, and we're like, all right, well, I guess I just wasted that. So I definitely broke it up, but yeah, it was interesting to use for sure, and I found it, and from my research, it looks like hop hash is mostly dealed out in the fall after the harvest. So I think I got some of the last bits of it. But yeah, it's crazy stuff. We'll see.
Fun experiment.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, but it is from a specific varietal. It's just
El Dorado. Yeah.
It's just not like, okay, here's end of harvest. The hop farm had 10 different varietals.
That might be a little
I mean, I don't know how often they clean their pelletizer.
Yeah,
very cool.
So when you guys do those bigger batches, you guys contract brew out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we actually brew at Octopi.
How did that relationship develop?
Well, early on in our planning, we're like, okay, we're gonna open up a tap room, 10-barrel, and we're gonna have all these awesome things, and it's gonna be great, and it's gonna be like a 200-person, tap room, and we're like, all right, well, that's the price tag, or we're not doing that. And so we're like, all right, well, what if we, open up a small facility, just to really develop the recipes, and then let's contract our core recipes to a larger brewery, so we can get our name out there for, fraction of the dollar amount. So we talked to like Sand Creek. A friend of mine at the time he was the Lakefront rep, told me about Octopi. His friend, he'd known because he was from Chicago. He knew Isaac over at Octopi. Said, well, we should go there. I mean, they've just built a beautiful brand new facility. It's definitely a little big, but they have all the ability to brew very consistent beer, and that's a big part of what we want. Obviously, is like any good craft brewer wants really consistent beer. I emailed Isaac and he had us up there, and oddly enough, that was like 2 years ago, or it was a year ago. So it was not, we weren't even like filling out the paperwork yet. We haven't even found, the space that we're in right now. And we talked and we really liked it. We weren't going to do it again after the plans keep changing, because they always change. And we were like, all right, let's take, in the meantime, let's self-distribute. Let's do our core beer. Let's do Loop Station, and then slowly add another brand after brand. Talked to Isaac, and he had room, and we got in on March 26th, I believe. March 26th to brew Loop Station, and I'm actually going to package it on Wednesday.
Sure. So you mentioned self-distribution there.
Yeah.
Where are you guys currently self-distributing to? Where can people find your beer other than right here?
Right now, it's pretty much right here.
Right?
Yeah.
So none of the craft beer bars or anything like that?
We can't make enough right now.
We can't make enough.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. No complaints.
We've thrown 6 barrels out to a couple of places, like Champs has had Immortal Soul on, and I know we just sold a 6 barrel of Loop Station to Champs, or not Champs, Brass Tap. And I know we gave 3 6 barrels of Huey Lewis and the Booze, which is the bourbon barrel aged coffee bean brown ale, to 3 cellars in Franklin. But that's about it, other than the Milwaukee Craft Brewery Tap Takeover events. Those are really the only barrels that have escaped the brewery. So now that we have 50 barrels of Loop Station to work with, we definitely have a little bit more room to grow. And yeah, self-distributing. What's being so small, we actually have a couple more hurdles to actually jump over. I mean, we don't have the space to store 50 barrels of beer. That's 140 kegs. We actually had to rent public warehouse space, cold storage space out in Waukesha, and we needed to get a public warehouse permit. And so there's a few more. So now every time that we have a delivery, we have to take our van, drive out to Waukesha, pick up a pallet or two, and then distribute it. So it's definitely very different from a lot of the people in town who are even self-distributing. So we'll see how that goes. But starting next week, we'll be doing it.
Awesome.
So when you package, you're still packaging directly into kegs.
For right now, we are in plans. Hopefully, Octopi's getting their canning line in July. So we will hopefully have Loop Station in cans by middle to end of July, hopefully.
Okay. So Octopi is even providing the canning line as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, they have a bottling line and canning line, well, soon to be canning line. We're being musicians and we're also golfers too. Like, cans are not only better for the beer, but for us and in our how we go about life, is cans go where bottles can't. So like a big part of what we want to do is we want to get our cans at all the local music venues and music festivals around town and especially on golf courses, and none of them allow bottles. So it was kind of just a no-brainer. I mean, we could have bottled Loop Station. Wouldn't have been an issue, but we decided to wait. And that beer I think will be even better out of can too.
Yeah, it's built for cracking open on a pontoon and having a couple of them. It's going to be an awesome summer beer.
Floating down the river beer, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Patio pounder.
Awesome. Well, speaking of the beers, I think we're going to take a little break. We're going to pour some beers, come back with a little bit of a live tasting. We're going to talk about the facility that you guys are brewing in. We're going to taste some beers. We're going to reach into the mailbag for some listener questions, and we've possibly got some breaking news here at Eagle Brewing Company. We'll be back right after Andy's beer news.
All right, welcome back to Beer News. This is Jesus making a cameo with Andy. And what do we have for beer news? That's right. This week, we actually have a treat. Going forward, we're going to do a tasting of a easily accessible beer. And this week, we're going to talk about the New Glarus Strawberry Rhubarb.
So the New Glarus Strawberry Rhubarb will be our brew of choice this week for beer news. This tasty concoction is a thumbprint limited edition that is still readily available in the state of Wisconsin. It reminds us of warm summer days ahead and fresh-baked strawberry rhubarb pie. Not only is it a delicious fruit beer, it only clocks in at 4% ABV, so you can enjoy many more than the beers we usually review. Strawberry Rhubarb also is highly tradable, as it is a Wisconsin-only beer from our beloved New Glarus. We highly suggest getting some of this before this limited edition beer is gone. So what do you think, Jesus?
This is actually everything that you would think a strawberry rhubarb beer would have. It is sweet, has a little bit of tartness, very refreshing. That 4% really is not boozy, and compared to the big whales we've been doing, the bourbon barrel aged stouts and the really hoppy beers, it's a great change of pace and really really is a perfect spring beer.
I completely agree. I mean, I was surprised. I didn't think I was going to like it. I'm not a big fan of fruit beers, but strawberry up front, subtle tartness from the rhubarb at the back end. You're going to like this beer. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and even the appearance, the cloudiness, nice pink of the strawberry. It's a great beer. Definitely go out and get it, and let's move on to the beer releases.
So, for beer releases, this beer news segment, Goose Island's Cooper Project debuted its first beer this week. It's a bourbon barrel-aged Scotch ale that clocks in at 8.7 ABV and does a great job of highlighting caramel, toffee, and roast flavors. It pours a dark brown color with red highlights, with caramel notes immediately evident in the aroma. If you want to get your hands on this beer, get to stores now, as it most likely will be gone by next week. Make sure you ask for it, because it will not be on display.
South Carolina brewery Westbrook has its annual release of Mexican Cake. Precious few bottles of this chocolate and pepper wonder stout do hit their distro areas, but the majority sells out at the brewery the date it releases. Mexican Cake's barrel-aged variants will be released later this year. They are a brewery-only release and highly sought after. Mars, a double IPA by Bell's, has been re-released after taking an almost 3-year hiatus. An intense hopping regime imparts notes of tropical fruits, citrus, and pine. While Munich malts provide balance and a deep red hue, this dank hop bomb should be readily available at most stores with a craft beer section.
If you're planning a trip to Indiana this June, make sure it's around Saturday, June 24th. The Devil's Trumpet Brewing Company will be having its annual release of Heaven's Court. This massive Russian Imperial Stout is blended with El Popular Mexican chocolate and dark matter coffee. They then age it in Four Roses bourbon barrels, adding another layer of complexity, resulting in a 15% plus ABV. Details of this festival haven't been released yet, so follow their social media to keep this behemoth on your radar. In local brewery news, a big congrats to our friends over at Raised Grain. They had a huge expansion announcement this week. The move is contingent on a conditional use permit for inclusion of a tap room and a restaurant down the road. They will be turning a 20,000 square foot former mattress company into their main production facility, and the Blue Mound Brewhouse will become a pilot brewery. The new location will allow for a larger, more sophisticated brewhouse, as well as room for a canning line. This increased capacity will allow Raised Grain to spread distribution to a much wider range, and we can't wait. To see their story and where they started, listen to the Tap Takeover Podcast, Episode 6, with Scott and Nick from Raised Grain.
Good City Brewing Company also announced an expansion of its space to include a rooftop beer garden. Solomon Oath Brewery makes its return to Wisconsin distribution this week. Cans available in the Milwaukee and Madison market will be Snaggletooth Bandana, a medium-bodied APA, Lou, a Kolsch-style ale, and Old Faithhorn, an American pale ale. They will be having events in Milwaukee all this week. The best are either tonight, Wednesday, May 3rd at Ray's Growler Gallery, featuring Fobab award-winning Limousine of the Damned and Choco Bomb, or Saturday, May 6th at Bernhardt's, where they team up with 18th Street Brewery, who makes its first appearance ever in the state of Wisconsin. Nationally, Founders has plans to expand and open up a brew pub in Detroit. This will be a fully operational brewery as well. It will be located in Midtown Detroit, an up-and-coming cultural hub adjacent to sports arenas and music venues. This 14,000 square foot location has a target of winter 2017 for its grand opening.
In festival news, May 13th is one of the biggest annual beer events at Three Floyds. It's called Dark Lord Day, in case you didn't already know. Tickets are sold out, but we advise to start planning for next year already. This epic bash every year features the one-day brewery-only release of Dark Lord Russian Imperial Stout at Three Floyds Brewery in Munster, Indiana. On May 26th through the 28th, the Micro at State Fair has its annual Summer Untapped event. Enjoy 50-plus craft beers on draft, a Bloody Mary / old-fashioned bar, and live music. June 3rd is the annual Beer Barons World of Beer Festival in Menominee Falls. This festival features over 350 different beers to sample from, as well as a home brewing contest for you to sample and judge. June 17th gives you 3 events to choose from. The top of the list for us is Wisconsin Beer Lovers Festival at Bayshore Mall in Glendale. This is always a great event featuring breweries and restaurants from all over the great state of Wisconsin. You may find the Tap Takeover Podcast crew at this event as well. Also on the 17th, Good City is having a live music and beer event at their brewery. Jam to some tunes and enjoy not one but 2 special release beers. The Fermentorium is also having a live music and beer event at their brewery in Grafton. And this has been the Tap Takeover Podcast Beer News.
That's right.
This is Jake,
And I'm Jackson.
and welcome to the Tap Takeover Podcast. Good luck finding out who's drunk.
And who's not?
Okay, thanks, Andy, for the amazing beer news. And now let's talk about the beers. I am currently sipping on this Loop Station. I gotta say, this is one of the weirdest, coolest, most interesting beers I've had in a long time. It's one of those things where, so it's brewed with agave nectar, lime peel, and sea salt. And if I tasted one of those things specifically in this beer, I might be put off. But there's such a blend of them that you don't taste any of those one things. They just blend into this really beautiful beer. What do you guys think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, the salt is just a little hint there that I think adds to the flavor. I'm curious from Jack to understand how the guave nectar, being a sugar, so it's going to get fermented out.
Yep.
But what kind of residue flavor can we get out of it?
Like you said, it ferments out like 100%. It's like honey. It's in there. I mean, I put it in there. It's a soft, very
There's definitely
soft
some flavor from it.
flavor. Yeah, it's like there's almost like a hint. I almost get like a slightly floral note to it. Just a hint. It's just a hint in there, but yeah, it's mostly a brewing sugar, and I think it also adds to the overall mystique of if it was just lime peel and sea salt, yeah, it's cool. But like if it's okay, there's agave nectar, lime peel, and sea salt. It definitely helps with even the branding and a sales aspect of the beer too, which is really important.
Yeah, it's very bright, crisp, easy drinking.
It's refreshing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you guys had this on tap anywhere other than your own tap house?
Had it on at Explorium out in Greendale. There was a Tap Takeover Milwaukee Craft Brewery League event there, and it was also his opening night. We gave him a 6-barrel on Friday. He emailed me. He's like, it went in an hour.
Holy
wow.
He's like, and like it was supposed to be for like that Wednesday. We just dropped it off early. I didn't know he was having like pre-opening
Yeah, like family and friends parties kind of stuff.
And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll get you. He's like, how about you get me 2? And I'm like, well, we're a little low on beer, but yeah, sure. We'll give you 2. And then the next night, yeah, we went through them. Can we get 2 more? And I was like,
We need to have beer on for this event the next week.
yeah. So we're like, all right, we gave it to them on, I believe it was Tuesday, and they open up on Wednesday officially. 2 more 6-barrels for the Craft Brewery League event, gone in like 2 hours. I literally said, because the event was at 6, I was like, Mike, can you please not tap it till 6?
So it seemed there was like a mystique about it. It was the only beer that was held off until the event.
I was like, just tap it at. I don't want it to run out before the event because it was our first Craft Brewery League Tap Takeover.
Those were the first kegs we put out.
It was first
to
kegs.
the market too.
So we were also pretty nervous too. Having our first real okay, go out there. It's not family and friends. Hopefully people like it. It was gone by like 8 o'clock. 2 6-barrels and okay, all right. Well, I guess we
Guess
we
you
nailed
arrived
down
a little bit.
Yeah.
Did something right.
It was pretty cool. I mean, you're a home brewer. You have your family and friends try your beer, and you're like waiting for them to say it's really good or oh my god, or they the classic kind of through their teeth grin like it's really good. I love it. I want to drink this a lot. And I think for us to be there and to kind of see, okay, people are ordering it. I'm not saying, hey, try this. They ordering it, and I was at the bar, waiting to order a beer, and some of the servers came up and were like, hey, people are asking is Loop Station on at 6? It was really cool feeling. And then we sat down for dinner at the table, and my dad, of course, being a homer, ordered a Loop Station, and she was like, that's my favorite beer on tap. So it was a really cool feeling. It's kind of selfish of us, but it was a great feeling.
I think what I thought was coolest about that event was it was the first time we had our beer in front of our peers in the industry. It kind of solidified us as, we know what we're doing. Because before that, we were the youngest kids on the block and just a homebrewing background. So we didn't get paid much mind.
Yeah, and
that was understandable, for sure.
And we'd gone to the events before, when we were not established yet, when we moved into our brewery and we were approved federally and moved in August, but we didn't get our state till early November. So we'd go to the events and, support the cause and we talk to these guys, and they're all super awesome guys, every single one of them. But, there's obviously that little bit of okay, so what do you good experience you guys have? You're a home brewing, and they kind of just look at you oh, good for you. And they say it nicely, and they're not being
pat you
mean.
on the head.
Yeah, they're not being
right,
mean, but they're they're kind of just saying, well, good luck to you, man. And I think, like Jake said, for them to when someone I think Matt from D14 at City Lights had it for the first time, he's like, it's a really good beer. good job, guys. And I was just like, oh, all right, awesome.
So even though Loop Station kind of defies a particular beer style, are you thinking of entering into any of the larger festivals that award medals?
I think we're going to take the rest of this year off from any of competitions. I think we definitely will in the future. But right now, I think our focus is getting beer out to the people around, Milwaukee, especially in the immediate future, and really honing in who we are and getting really good at brewing really good beer. And, I'm not saying that we're not there yet, but we're always learning, we're always getting better. And I don't want to submit anything until we're like, all right, we've done this for this long time. Like this is just really consistent. We're really happy with this. We're getting great feedback. Now try to get some credit, if you will, from the, beer community.
I think we'd actually have some problems submitting that beer in particular, just for how category.
Yes.
You could enter different
It doesn't.
styles.
Yeah.
Well, and it was interesting that actually in the last GABF, there was no gold medal awarded for pumpkin or squash beer because none of the beers submitted actually fit that style. So they decided no one wins the gold because none of y'all have read beer style guidelines.
And that's a hard thing for us too, because I don't always brew beer that fits 100% to a style, and it's like, oh, this is like the definition of a Czech
Right.
Pilsner. This is the definition of an imperial IPA. Like I like to use them as guidelines.
But that's a real challenge going forward is we have a lot more craft brewers. There's over 5,000 now. And similar to you, you're really challenging beer styles as they're dictated by the BJCP, because you're just looking to brew great beers, regardless of the adjuncts or the flavors. So it's really going to be a challenge for those people to kind of bring in those beers.
And get the notoriety, because winning a gold medal at the GABF, that's a huge deal. I mean, look at Paradox at Raised Grain. I mean, that really got them a lot of notoriety and a lot of credit for a brewery that could have fantastic beers and don't fit the style. They could be getting boned on it. It's tough.
Do you think there should be any laws changed to help the smaller breweries?
There's something that we dealt with that was pretty interesting and kind of unique to us was the Tide House laws in Wisconsin. Part of the 3-tier system, brewery, distributor, and bar owner.
Post-prohibition.
Originally put in place to prevent monopolies happening, that kind of thing. But now it doesn't really apply anymore. And since Jack and Max both were bartenders when we were applying for our license, it couldn't happen. So the guys down in Enlightened ran into the same thing. And we were the first ones to be allowed to still bartend and own a brewery, just as long as we agreed not to sell our beer at those bars.
We had to get the owners of the restaurants to sign off agreements saying they're not going to serve our beer as long as we're employed there. The state TTP had to go to the bar and look at the sales. The sales couldn't be above 60-40 food to liquor sales. And it was a big thing. And that law definitely I think is ridiculous because, like Jake said, it doesn't apply anymore. As if me selling, to my own bar and selling an extra half barrel a month, is really creating monopoly. Man, we're really screwing everybody over in the industry because I get an extra barrel in.
Now, we delved in a little bit that you guys are going to start self-distributing. What's the barrel limit that you guys can't go over? In Illinois, they told us it was 7,500 barrels, and they couldn't.
Illinois is really tough.
Yeah.
They have a really tough that whole system down there is crazy. I think ours is like 250,000 barrels.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. We could be like Nuclear's size and be fine. And I think we were going to go with the distributor too because all the, like I said, the issues that I talked about earlier with having to store and renting storage space for our kegs and having to go pick it up. We were just going to be like, all right, let's brew it at Octopi. Let's have a distributor come pick it up from the brewery, and now we don't have to worry about any sort of expense as far as distribution. Your margins aren't nearly as good, obviously, but you don't have to worry about that. You still have to sell the beer, but it's way better. And the more and more we dove into distributors and Max and I have been working with distributors on the other side of the bar for a number of years now. You get lost. I mean, especially
as a small brewery.
As a small brewery, especially because when you have Goose Island,
You're gonna
and
have
you have quotas, and they're like, you have to hit these quotas for us, or else, they're getting pressure because there's a lot more money made on selling Goose Island. Because why would a local sales rep go to a bar and say, all right, I got this awesome, really new local craft beer that is fantastic, and sell it? Because if he sold that, it's not going towards his quotas to get his bonuses because he has to sell so much Budweiser and Goose Island and Lagunitas in a month. No, he's going to hit his quotas first, and then if he's got time left over, he's going to go, all right, now I can say, all right, now let's sell this barrel. Let's sell this brewery. And that's why we were like, all right, let's self-distribute long enough to where there is a demand for our product. There's reason for a distributor to pick us up, and now they're going to be like, all right, we can sell them. There's money here. We can push them.
I think that's what's really interesting about a lot of the breweries that we speak with. You guys are coming up not because it's so easy because of the laws to make beer, but despite that, you guys are coming up. And the fact that so many breweries are coming up really speaks to the fact that the consumer wants craft beer and the fact that you guys really love making craft beer. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a very rewarding industry to be in. There's definitely a romanticism to it. When you tell someone for the past year or so that, I'm working on opening up a brewery, everyone's like, wow, that's awesome. But then there's the other handful of people like, oh, another brewery? So to people that aren't in the craft beer industry or involved in craft beer much, to see the growth for them is kind of shocking. And it's really helping everyone out, I think, as far as getting new people into craft beer, which is really cool. And I think that's why we're doing so well with our loop station, is it's super approachable for those people who are used to drinking your macro beers.
Yeah, and going back to, like Jake said, about the, romanticism of it, from us, we're musicians and, brewers. And both categories is not, it's not saying there's no money in it, but it's a more tough, line of work. Being a musician, we've played as far as western Iowa and as far south as, southern Illinois, and it's like there's no money in it. We love it. We love playing live. We love when we get a great crowd. It's like the best thing ever. It's the same thing with craft beer. Obviously, we're going to grow this to be as big as we possibly can, and we're going to love every second of it, and it's a lot of work. But what's beautiful about it is, especially for me, I brew 3 batches to fill a 1 barrel fermenter. Like, it's a good 12-hour day with cleanup and everything, and yeah, it's kind of tough getting out of bed to be like at 6 a.m. and being like, all right, I gotta get up. But as soon as I get that beer in the fermenter and I pitch the yeast, I'm just like, job well done. It's a very satisfying feeling to it.
So now you're obviously going into like a brand building phase.
Yes.
For this summer.
Correct.
What are some of your upcoming events that you're going to use to build the brand, either here at the brewery or out in the community, and also with your music? Any plans on intertwining the two?
Well, start with the music.
From a music standpoint, yes, we are always up for combining the two. We this last show, we're gonna sell a 6 barrel to the venue, and there'll be Eagle Park Beer on and Eagle Trace playing.
Definitely our plan in the future. Well, the plan right now, I guess it's always changing. So we do want to open up our own facility and bring all our production in-house, at least most of it. So in that facility, we do want to have a concert venue as well. So be both things under the same roof. It's been a concept we've had since the beginning and something we're really passionate about. That's kind of the end dream, I guess.
But we like to do events too. We have a Cinco de Mayo event coming up. We're gonna have a food truck, taco truck and loop station. We should have. We were gonna book a mariachi band, but we kind of pansied out a little bit.
It would have been so loud in here.
It's so loud. A horn section in this room would have been a little ridiculous. So we're just gonna have to settle for mariachi music on things like that. We're really getting our name out.
I think something that's unique to us in our location here is that we are in the same building as another brewery and a distillery. So we're going to do a lot of joint events this summer. So that should be pretty cool for people. You can park once and drink at 3 places that are making really awesome liquid in Milwaukee.
So are there any festivals that people will be able to try your beer at?
I'm working on a bunch right now, but nothing set in stone as far as that goes. Because we're so new, we kind of got a late start on the summer festival season.
We're not on the mailing list yet.
Yeah. we were so, we opened in January 28th, so we were so focused on getting open. And then once we opened, so focused on growing the tap room and brewing the beer next door and freaking out, oh my God, are we going to have enough beer? That it just kind of, slipped by us. And all of a sudden we're like, all right, now we need to start. It's April. So.
Yeah, well, stay tuned to the beer news section of the Tap Takeover Podcast, and we'll be giving you updates on Eagle Park as far as what they're going to be doing this summer. So you guys talked about rubbing elbows with some of the big boys in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewing Company and Lakefront. I had heard a little bit of a rumor that you guys are doing a little bit of a collaboration with one of those breweries. Care to speak to that?
It's a really cool event that we're doing in Milwaukee Craft Brewery League this summer during the Beer Bloggers Conference that's going to be here. I believe it's the end of July, first week of August.
It's like the crossover.
It's a crossover week. Basically, each day is going to be a different event. And one of the events is a tap takeover of all Milwaukee Craft Brew League collaboration beers. We talked to Milwaukee Brewing Company and decided that we were going to partner with them. Working out the style right now, but so far, it's summer. I wanted to brew something, very bright and drinkable. So I think we're talking about doing a Belgian Saison or a single and dry hopping it and using, I believe, Australian Summer.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a really nice, bright table beer that, you can just drink all day. And we were talking about doing like a big, crazy, Imperial Stout or doing, a double IPA, but, we were like, or a sour or a kettle sour or something like that. But, it's like, it's summer. Let's put something out there that is really refreshing and adds to and it's also very different from what everyone else is doing. So it's also just adding to the tap takeover too. So it's not like, double IPA, Imperial Stout, sour.
Something to stand out a little
Yes,
bit.
yeah, it's different by association, and just because a beer is not like this crazy big 8.2% beer brewed with hibiscus flower and lemongrass and like all these crazy, doesn't mean the beer can't be really awesome. And I think that's why we decided on that beer. We'll see if that changes. But
Yeah, there's some time yet.
there's some time to second guess, but yeah.
So you guys have had a bit of a history of working with another brewery, that being Enlightened. So you guys are in their former space. What have been the advantages and challenges to dealing with another brewery space that you guys have taken over?
The only challenge is the size of the room. It is by far the smallest brewery in this city. It's the shortest tour. You walk in and pretty much turn in a 360 and you get the whole picture.
It's like 450 square feet. So that is the main challenge. I mean, when you have all this equipment, trying to figure out, all right, this has got to go here and this has got to go there. I mean, if we had like a 5,000 square foot warehouse, it'd be like, all right, brew house is going to go there. We can get the space here. Like we can walk there. Like it's really like it gets tight in there, especially when on brew days when I'm moving pumps around. And right now we're in the process of moving out some of the smaller fermenters and they're still in there. So it's definitely getting more and more cramped. We get asked all the time, well, you guys going to do any barrel aged beers? I'm like, we'd love to. We'd love to. Short of them, being in the tap room or
You can use them as seats.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be the only option.
And yeah, so like that would be the challenge for sure. Because even for expansion, if we really wanted to add more fermenters, I don't know where we would put them right now. And so that's definitely a tough. But the positive side was it was pretty much set up for our setup. I mean, like we basically moved in. We had to put a hood in, but that was pretty much it.
Even legally, it was easy because
it was already
they'd already registered the place as a brewery, so they're like, okay, why not another one?
Yeah. And the Enlightened guys are awesome, super nice guys, very down to earth. And any question that I ever had, I remember embarrassing, but I remember getting the bright tank and everything, and I was like, hey James, can you show me how to use it? And he's like, yeah, sure, yeah, just do this. And he was super helpful, came up and was like, all right, this is what you want to do. And anytime there's a question, he's got a C-Box. It's a device that measures O2 levels and CO2. And every now and again, when I want to check, it's a $20,000 piece of equipment. I ask him, and he's like, yeah, sure. Comes up, puts it on the bright tank, hooks it up, does the check for me, and no big deal. I mean, they're great. So it's been a really awesome thing.
Well, and if you need to borrow a cup of malt, he's right there for you.
Exactly.
And that's actually happened. It's actually happened. Or hey, do you have any Liberty hops? Yeah, I got some here. Or a CO2 tank. Oh, I ran out of CO2 for the day. Can you? Yeah, no big deal at all. So it's really nice.
So it seems to be a lot of camaraderie in the Milwaukee area with the craft breweries.
Yes, extremely so.
Well, especially when you guys are dealing with so many laws that, outdated laws that are kind of pushing against you as far as coming up as an organic kind of brewery. It's really good to see that you guys have kind of locked arms together and said, let's kind of fight this a little bit.
The more together we are, the more powerful we are, for sure. And I think that's the main reason we got together was to help, fight some of these laws and to really work together and with the common, struggles that we have, how to get around them. And as a whole, to promote Milwaukee craft beer, it's awesome when nobody's taking their ball and going home. At least that hasn't happened yet. So,
well, I appreciate you guys sitting down with us. It looks like we're almost out of beer here, guys.
Yeah, we drank them dry.
So for me, for Alex,
Andy,
I'm Jim.
Jake,
Jackson,
thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
All right.
you.
Cheers.
cheers, guys.
This has been a solid non-fail production.
No more beer.